Okay, welcome to our Zoom chat live with David Jones. David Jones is known as the NBC Guy, which stands for Nuclear, Biological, Chemical. He is an expert in his field and over the years has become a good friend of ours. I have great respect for David and really the knowledge, I think. And wouldn't you agree, David? I mean, at all these events that you and I have spoken at, it was always set up that the two of us spoke at the exact same time. And I would always look at David and go, David, I want to get into your classes and I can't get into them because they have me talking. So what I'm going to do is I would like David, I just want you to basically give them your background. Tell them a little bit about yourself and how you got to being deemed the expert that the government sees you to be. Okay.
Well, yeah. Sure. So I started my military career in 1975, and I spent 24 years active federal service. Most all of it was in nuclear, biological, chemical. For your Army military people out there, I was an E7 when I went to OCS. So I was a sergeant first class. Then I went to OCS. Then I retired as a major, and 6 months after that, 9/11 happened, and 6 months after that, I found myself back in the Army, and they shipped me straight to the Middle East, where I spent the next 22 continuous months traveling to 16 countries from Africa to Southwest Asia, all over the CENTCOM area of responsibility, AOR, area of responsibility. And so when I got activated, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do, where I was supposed to go, and I called this girl up, and she had access to the computer that had everybody's job title, and I said, plug this in and tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. He said, well, hell, you're a weapons expert. I said, oh my gosh, small arms? She said, no, chemical. I'm like, oh. So I realized right then that you're an expert when the Army tells you you're an expert.
Yeah, because you never feel like the expert, right?
Right. Now, I did very well. Graduated #1 in a bunch of my classes and stuff like that. But in my civilian world, I did security, police work, and I worked for NASA, Air Force Global Strike Command. I'm currently with the federal government. Don't hold that against me, okay? Right. I tell people I work for the government. I am not a part of the government.
You know what, David? First, I would like to say thank you very much for your service.
Well, sure.
You know, the fact that, my husband retired from the military, and he retired after 9/11 happened, but there was a time where we didn't know if he was going to get out or not. And the fact that you were called back into service, that was one thing that we worried about, because we're like, oh no, please don't let that happen, right? So thank you, because being a military wife, I know the sacrifice that goes along with the family being left behind, and the spouse going off, and it wasn't like you were going off for vacation.
No.
What you were doing was rather dangerous, but it also truly equipped you for being able to help people learn. And so that was one of the big reasons I was so excited to be able to have you on to help people learn, because I know you and I, for a time, were out on the circuit, but that's a crazy life. And so we're looking for other ways to be able to help educate people who really, really want to learn. And so tonight, nuclear, biological, chemical, that is not a 1-hour program. Okay. That's like mega programs. And so just so everybody knows, tonight we're going to do an overview. Really, we're going to talk about nuclear, biological, chemical, but we're going to have David back on, and we're going to do individual series, just talking nuclear, just talking biological, just talking chemical. But to me, if we never get another opportunity, David,
Mhm.
if the world ended as we knew it tomorrow, if something devastating occurred with all the craziness going on around the world, what I
Yes.
wanted to do was to at least be able to go, let
Sure.
us look, nuclear, biological, chemical, what is the reality of those things happening here? What are some things that we can do to help ourselves? And I know
Sure.
when I first met you, I was like, sure, I know what to do if a hurricane or a tornado or fire or flood or tsunami or something like that happens. But what about the nuclear, right? I have my fear, and you and I have talked about, which is biological.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
for me that is, and we're going to talk about that. But I know that most people, when we go out to conventions, what's their number one question or fourth, their thought on their brain is EMP.
All right. Right.
Okay, so
EMP
why
is
don't we
everybody's
start with
big
that
bug.
EMP?
Sure. Absolutely. Hey, and thank you for having me on, because I feel well, first of all, I never thought in a million years I'd ever be talking to civilians about what I did in the Army. So I really appreciate your interest in what was my life's work. I mean, for 24 years, that's what I did, and I love it. I have those special wrinkles in my brain for nuclear power.
But
I don't know
but
why.
you know what, David? It
Yeah,
maybe is what you were doing, but now I have seen your passion. I have seen you out there trying to educate people reality.
yeah,
And that's what I love. You're not a conspiracy theorist. You're
no,
a realist, okay?
yes,
And that's what you're doing now. You get to take, just like I have with all that I have seen, and be able to educate. And so you don't leave it behind. You kind of bring it forward
yeah,
and you have a great passion to try to help people get prepared. It's
yeah.
just finding the people who really want to hear it. And I know the people who are on really want to hear it.
Yes, I know that too. So let's make it worth their while. Okay, so
Okay.
when I'm doing this out on the circuit, I tell people the number one thing that will kill you in a nuclear, biological, or chemical attack is panic.
Mhm.
Okay, you have got to keep your head. While everybody else may be losing theirs, you have got to keep your head, because you got to think. You don't want your next step to be your last step. You don't want to
Exactly.
do, yeah, the wrong thing. Now, EMP, okay, it's everybody's big bugaboo out on the circuit, and everybody tries to prep. But I like to tell people that if your emergency plan is heavy into using electricity, you may have a bad plan. Okay, you need to really, really look at that, because the big thing about EMP is it will knock out our grid. It will knock out our electric grid. EMP is very hit and miss. So whereas your next door neighbor's stuff may be completely wiped out, yours may be just fine. Okay. But it will wipe out our grid. Our grid is very fragile. I mean, we have brownouts right now from our grid when it operates in a heavy summer air conditioning time. When I worked for Pennsylvania Emergency Management, we would get warnings from the electrical grid, and they would say things like, "We're at 98% capacity today." And, we're at the EOC in Pennsylvania, and we said, okay, what are we supposed to do with that information? And when they were approaching 100, that's when they had a chance of failing. So, and that was normal. That was a normal hot summer day. Now, if you're stressing the system that bad and you have some kind of event, it will cause a cascading failure over the whole electrical grid. And it will be down not for hours or weeks. It will be down for months and maybe years. Um, I got into an argument with a guy on Facebook saying that we'll be back to the Middle Ages, and he says, oh no, we won't be back to the Middle Ages. I'm like, so you're arguing over me over what century we'll be in?
It's,
You know? And then I had to say to him, so you're going to pull up a book, a manual, open it up and start reading how to start up an electric, a nuclear power plant. He said, the knowledge won't be lost. The knowledge won't be lost, but I'm not sure I want you at the hands of a nuclear power plant.
do you know what, David? I think too, just with natural disasters, we
Yes.
get into disaster areas and the electricity's gone.
Yeah.
And people are so dysfunction, whether it be from the stress of what they've just gone through, the fact that their world is gone as they know it, even though maybe 5, 10, 30 miles away, life goes on as normal.
Oh, yeah.
You can't function. And so now imagine an EMP were to occur.
Yeah, with
Everything is gone. And I think a lot of people, they really are prepping for that, and I think because that is their great fear, even though I look at it and go, well, an EMP won't cause massive death.
No.
Okay. Now,
not directly. Not directly. Indirectly, it will.
Correct. Right.
So you don't have to worry about the EMP affecting you. It doesn't affect organic material. It affects electronics and anything electrical. So also people ask me all the time about how will it transpire. And it doesn't matter who strikes first, whether it's North Korea or whether it's us, it will be a high altitude airburst. Okay. It will be intentional. So this high altitude airburst causes an EMP effect over the country. And that's designed to knock out communications, command, control. And they're not going to use just one. It will be several. The most likely time for an attack is at night. Okay? There's a couple different reasons for that. But when we were doing nuclear target analysis, so I did this for the Army, you'd want to get a target area. And whatever your target area was, you wanted to be able to saturate. So in that target area at night, most everybody's stable. They know exactly where people are at night. During the day, people are moving around. And you also get extra added effects like night blindness and things like that. So nighttime, also, look at who's attacking us. They're on the other side of the world. Now, they're going to attack with their A team, their best and their brightest, not their night shift. Okay? If you've ever worked shift work, you know about the night shift, okay? It's just A team is during the day. They're going to get their first cup of coffee. If you look at the missiles that have been launched from North Korea, it's all been very early in the morning, their morning, which is late for us, okay? So their crew's coming in, they're fresh, it's first thing in the morning. He doesn't want to make a mistake. So he's going to have the A team there. And he's going to attack on his schedule, not ours. So most likely it will happen at night.
Okay, so you said something, and then we're going to have to move on to biological, because again, we don't get a lot of time here. I said this hour is going to fly by.
Absolutely.
But when we were talking, you had made a comment that, and I thought it was something I had not thought about. When you look at a Faraday cage and you put supplies into the Faraday cage, and in the newsletter I have coming out, I'm going to have a link to some of David's articles and stuff for you. But one thing I thought really important was that you talked about not pulling everything out of your Faraday cage after the first EMP. And I thought, wow, that's really smart. So can you talk about why not? Because that I didn't think about that one. And so I thought that was very good that you put that out there.
Absolutely. So when I'm giving my presentation, I tell people that the first thing they should do after a nuclear attack or an EMP, the very first thing they should do is change their pants.
Yeah.
And trust me, the rest of the people in your group, they will appreciate that for you if you do that, because it's going to be. And what I mean by that is there's no hurry. Okay, there's no hurry. The zombie apocalypse, the hordes are not coming over the ridge. Okay, there's no hurry. If I had one nuke and I launched it and I wasn't sure it did a good enough job, wouldn't I wait until you got all your defenses back up and communications back up and then launch another one? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So think about that. Don't open up your Faraday cage right away. Maybe even wait a few days. You know that the radiation or anything like that is not going to come like that. Okay, it's not going to be right at your doorstep. Now, if you live close to a nuclear power plant or a target area, Norfolk Naval Base, that would be a big target. If you live close to there, you're going to need some kind of detection equipment. Okay, so pull your stuff out, have redundancies, maybe make 2 Faraday cages. Mm-hmm. Have one, exact copies. And isn't redundancy best? Because if one thing's broken, you have another one to go to. So break the first.
And you know what, David, in doing disaster relief, and I know you'll totally agree with it, we consider one is none.
None.
Okay, so even for us looking at Faraday cage, it's not just one.
Right.
All right, because if you have an item, a skill, something, it fails, it breaks, it doesn't work, you have nothing.
Right.
So you really need to plan that. But I love the fact that you said, don't pull anything out. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait several days, wait a week, or have more than one so you can pull out of your one. And if they hit again, then you would be able to. Okay, so what would you, because now we have to move on. And I want to read something that you had in your article. In one of your articles I was reading. And you did say this, and I love this phrase. And you were talking about EMP. I want to put this type of event in the proper perspective and not make it something that it is not. Just as we prepare for a flood or a hurricane, we can easily prepare for this. Yes. I loved that statement because how true.
Yeah.
How true that is. But then later on, okay, I have to read this because you write very well, okay?
Wow, well, thanks.
You said in the article, now I promise to tell you what would kill more people than global thermal nuclear war and what is widely considered the most devastating NBC attack which could occur, and that is a biological agent. Yes, a little germ could wipe out most of the planet's population and leave all the building and structures intact. Why haven't the enemies of the U.S. already used this unbelievable weapon, and will they? So I pass that on to you.
Well, that's great because I was just interviewed yesterday for Off Grid magazine, and it was about smallpox. And so we talked a lot about smallpox, and it is the perfect biological weapon. I mean, 30% casualty rate. So if they launch smallpox, 1 out of 3 people will die.
Right.
I mean, that, and it has, 7 to 14 days incubation period. If you tried to track back all the people that you came in contact for the past 7 to 14 days, it would be very hard. So you're spreading that. You're spreading. Yeah.
Well, and you look at it this way too, with the way people just look at the flu. Nobody's home. Okay. Yeah. There's no quarantine. I mean, you quarantine the healthy and you quarantine the sick.
Yes.
People just don't practice that. And I know a lot of people are so worried about nuclear, but I sit there and I go, and I guess maybe it's because I have been in so many disasters and I've seen just the simple bacterial or viral infections and just look, the flu. I mean, we
Yes.
were talking about it, and I think he said, what, 90 children have died? Now
Yeah.
imagine something like smallpox, which, when you read articles, they go, oh, it's been eradicated. Oh, we don't need to worry about that. And I sit there and I go, who are you kidding? Okay,
Yeah.
you should be that is something, when you look at diseases, you have to have a game plan.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been eradicated except for the hundreds of
Yeah.
laboratories that have smallpox in them right now worldwide.
But
And,
of
and
course,
just, yeah. And
yeah,
just a
but,
few years ago, they found some in an abandoned laboratory that wasn't disposed of properly. And there's also an article about two Canadian scientists that produced cowpox in a laboratory, and the way they did it was they ordered a snippet of DNA from one lab, a snippet from another, so they wouldn't set off any red flags and get arrested. And then they put it all together in one laboratory. It cost them around $100,000 to do it. Then they published the results on the internet. I know. So now everybody can find this and learn how to do it. And with a rudimentary laboratory, combine all this stuff and make smallpox.
well, and that's kind of scary because you look at some of the crazies that are out there.
Absolutely.
Some of the stuff, I know freedom of speech. But what's crazy is that somebody can publish something like that on the web.
Yeah.
And yet we can't talk the truth about natural alternatives.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, we're not able to say stuff like that. So anyways, so we look at biological.
Yeah, and I want to bring up this one point. And so I was in Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, and I was representing the Pennsylvania headquarters Emergency Operations Center. And we were doing a tabletop exercise with all the food people, okay, the grocery stores and the 7-Elevens. And they were all there. It was a huge auditorium, and there was tables, and we were doing this exercise. The scenario was a pandemic flu. Okay. And it got up to 6,800 people had died from this flu just in Pennsylvania, just the state of Pennsylvania. So it was pretty bad. I mean, and they were talking about, yes, we know we'll have some shortages of people and we'll transfer them from store to store, which you absolutely don't want to do because you're spreading a disease. Mm-hmm. But when the microphone came to me, I said, I don't think you're realizing the situation as it is. A pandemic flu is the second largest natural disaster that can occur, second only to an asteroid hitting the planet.
Wow.
And they were like, whoa, and then from then on, I was asteroid guy in the back, according to asteroid guy in the back. But when we do a pandemic exercise, we plan on 40% of the people not being there. They're either sick or they're taking care of someone that is sick. And if you imagine 40% of the truck drivers not driving, 40% of any, there's only one organization that I think could actually do better, and that's the federal government. If they had 40%, just saying.
You didn't say that, right?
Yeah, it wasn't me. Turn the video off. Stop recording.
Right.
I want to keep my job one more year.
Right.
No, so it is the single largest thing. I mean, next to an asteroid hitting the planet, that can happen. And if you look at the 1918 flu, I see someone had put that in there. It was the impetus for Stephen King's book, The Stand, where the world was wiped out by this flu. And it was all because he went in and got a flu shot and said, hey, doc, how come we got to get a different flu shot every year? And he told him that it mutates, that, we have some bird flu right now that has almost a 50% casualty rate.
Wow, here in the U.S.?
Well, no, that was the
All
avian
around the
flu.
world.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if that transfers and that gets spread, it's going to be terrible. So the key, I want to give people hope. I don't want to scare the
Right.
crap out of them. They'll never tune in again. The key is what you're doing right now. Okay. I had a lady who said, well, would you still send your kids to school? And I said, hell no.
Right.
They bring enough stuff home anyways. I get sick every other week from my kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old. Okay, so I got started late. This is in color in my hair.
Yes, but you have really sweet kids.
Thank you. So I said to her, what are you saving that 30 days or 60 days of food for? If you cannot isolate yourself, okay, and that's what it is. It's isolation. You have to cut yourself off from the outside world for a period of time. And it's until whatever it is runs its course, okay? The 1918 flu took 18 months, and it killed more people than the Civil War, which took 5 years. There are accounts where people were getting hauled out of the city, bodies, in railroad cars. They limited funerals to 15 minutes because they didn't want people coming together, spreading more of the flu. I mean, it was unbelievable. If you read the accounts of the 1918 flu, and that was H1N1.
Well, you know what? Let me share this.
Sure.
I look at just with this flu, and I want people to think what they did. We didn't go to the grocery store. We weren't going out. We when it became an epidemic proportion in our town, we isolated ourselves basically.
Yeah.
You know, we have our food store and everything, and we were just using what we had.
Yeah.
We had no need to have to go. And when we did have an event that was going to draw people, and we canceled it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I don't want to bring healthy people. And a lot of times people don't, they're like, well, maybe I'm getting something or maybe I'm not. And then they go. And then next thing you hear, oh my goodness, they have 103 fever, right?
Yes.
So that is something people don't practice. But if you look back at that 1918 flu, you also have to look at natural alternative. And the results that were done where the mortality rate with people who are doing homeopathy was like 1% compared to the 30% plus of the people who are doing other things, you know. So it's important. There's so much people can do now to prepare for any sort, but even just the yearly flu. This is just this here right now, what's been going around, you know, people are dying from it. And people, you know, people who know the trading post, they have friends and family who have died from it. And that's very sad because there's so much that people could do. But one of them is stop going out into public.
Yeah.
Right?
You're only as strong as the weakest person that spreads the flu. So whereas you're keeping your hands clean and doing everything right, whoever comes to that group that's not doing it is spreading it. I know you're big on colloidal silver. You know, the thing that kills you in a flu is the secondary infection.
Right.
That you'll get a secondary respiratory infection, and it's usually bacterial. And colloidal silver works really well against bacterial infection. So if you're doing that and you know how to make that, someone put on here the flu vaccine weakens your immune system, not strengthens, and that's correct. There's even some studies that say you only have so many antibodies that you can produce. And what if you get the injection for that flu, you produce those antibodies and it's the wrong flu? You can't fight off the next flu because you've already, you know, they really don't know how the immune system works exactly. They're just taking their best guess. So in the Jones household, We don't get the flu shot. We get the flu early and get it over with.
Oh, okay. Well, can I just tell you, I
Sure.
bombard my body with healthy
Yes,
so that I have a nice, strong immune system so I don't get that garbage.
exactly.
Right? Okay. And
Yeah.
so that would be the goal. And I think a lot of people could do things now. Is
Oh,
there
yeah.
anything else that you can think of? And I love the fact that you brought up, you know, you kind of have to keep yourself away from people. You talk,
Absolutely.
quarantine, people think, oh, well, we'll just keep that person off by themselves. But if you don't kind of quarantine yourself from everybody in society, then you are becoming susceptible because you don't know. And, whether it is airborne or if it's by touch, right? Somebody's coughed on their hand, they touch it. Now you come by and you touch it and you're rubbing your face. And I also tell people, you have got to stop rubbing your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, okay? Because that's an entryway into the body.
Yes.
Right? So who wants to get those biological things put in?
And wash your hands.
A lot.
Sing to yourself A, B, C, D, or happy birthday. Make sure that the soap is on your hands long enough to kill the germs. Vitamin C, strength, it hardens your cell wall. Okay, so that the little things can't get in through your cell wall. If you look at the nucleus of a cell and a virus is like so much smaller. And I explain all this in my DVDs, but we have to move on.
Which you have to. Okay, so let's move on, because like I said, we're going to have you back and we're going to talk specifically, okay, on each one of these. But if we look at chemical,
yes,
right? If we look at chemical now, so what would be? I mean, that's another one that, you hear about how some of these countries have done chemical attacks on their own people, right?
Yes.
And they've done all kinds of stuff. And that's another one. What do you do? What do you do? And for a long time, right?
Yeah. Well,
nobody had a game plan. And it amazes me that when we're out on the circuit speaking, that we don't have people come to the booth going, biological, chemical, what do I do? But no, it's always EMP.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The one that they're not going to really have to worry so much at the beginning of bodily harm. Now, gangs and stuff will become an issue, and people who didn't prepare, that could become an issue because they're going to want what you have. But chemical, if somebody, releases Agent Orange or something like that, what do you do?
Well, yeah, and it's very easy to produce. I mean, it's so easy to produce that they have proven that ISIS has made their own chemical weapons and used them.
Well, now, I don't want to hear that.
Well, okay, that's the bad news. The good news is the effects are very local, okay?
Okay.
And when I talk about nuclear, I tell people the effects are very local, that, 5 or 6 or 20 nuclear bombs are not going to wipe out the country. I mean, it's just not possible. The effects will be bad right where the bombs go off, and there will be fallout or, residual radiation, but it's not going to wipe out the entire country. So the rest of the country needs to know how, and chemical is the same way. In order to achieve some casualties, you need to really saturate an area pretty good. Unless you have like a subway, okay, a release in a subway or a confined space or something like that, where people are all sharing the same air, it's difficult to exit, you're going to produce a lot more casualties. But open air, it's going to dissipate. Sunlight, heat, wind, rain, all of that stuff dissipates chemicals. So that's the good news. The bad news is there is only one protective measure that I know of for chemical weapons. You got it right there.
I got it. I'm grabbing it.
Okay.
Oh, Grace, can you?
RSDL, Reactive Skin Decontamination Lotion. Now what this is it's a sponge.
I don't know.
That's, yep, right there it is.
Okay.
For all you military people, you know this as the M256 kit. And I actually use this in live nerve agent, okay? And it works. It will decontaminate you. All of your exposed skin, you want to have that available. That should be in your bug out bag, your get home bag, something like that, okay? It's very light. It only weighs a couple ounces.
Yeah, it's not. I mean,
Yeah, it's not
it kind of when you open it, you think that's going to help me during a chemical attack,
Yep.
right? Because it is very lightweight.
Yeah, one packet will do all of your exposed skin. And where do you get it? That's an excellent question. This is so new, okay? It's only been available since the 1st of October to the civilian world. To the civilian world. It has been available for the U.S. Army for about 30 years. They have 30 countries around the world. Their armies use it. The Israeli army uses it. All of NATO, okay? It is the standard decontamination solution for your skin. You can get it only right now on Amazon.
Yeah, we're trying to get it. We're trying to get it. We're trying to work with them to be able to provide it for people. I think it's a really important thing. Yeah. I know one thing that I had spoken to you about was in reading it and researching it out. There was that, if you have it, it may cause some skin irritation. But I sat there when you told me, and you're like, okay, skin irritation compared to death. Okay, bring on the skin irritation. Right?
Exactly.
Right? If it's
and that's only if you don't wash it off right away. I mean,
right.
I asked him. I said, "What if you leave it on for a while? What if you don't have enough water?" And he says, "Well, you'll get a little rash." I'm like, "Well, I'd take a rash over death any day."
Exactly. Well, let me ask you. Can I ask you this question?
Sure.
Looking at chemical attacks, and you kind of know people, the mindset of people around the world.
Yes.
What sort of chemical attack would be, not from conspiracy theory, and I know this is a guess on your part, but from the knowledge that you have, what would be more likely that we would need to, if we were looking at a chemical, like you told us, smallpox would be a great one for them to use. What about from chemical standpoint?
Well, they're going to use one of two things. They're either going to use a nerve agent, okay, or they're going to use a blister agent. And a blister agent, you might not think that a blister agent is all that bad because it causes blisters, but it's really, really bad. It's arsenic, it's a carcinogen, and you want to be able to decontaminate that off your skin as soon as you get it on. Yes.
So now this will work?
Yes.
Okay.
There's also a nerve agent that's very sticky, okay? And that will also work for that. So you want to get that.
So either the nerve, it will work for both types, that nerve agent and the other.
Yes.
Okay.
Someone said, yes, it's on Amazon right now for $49.95. I think you get a packet and a practice packet.
Yes, you do. So this is what you would get. You'll get this one here. This is the practice.
Yep.
And this is the real. Do not open the real unless you need to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty easy. I mean, if it's just like wipe it on, let it sit, rinse it off. It's that easy. It has a 5-year shelf life, but we all know about shelf lives, right?
Right.
The lawyers don't want me. I'm actually, they're my sponsor. Okay. The lawyers don't want me to tell you this. Okay. But 5 years is what they're legally able to say. Okay. So, and if I was in this situation, I had an expired kit or nothing, I think I'd put the expired kit on.
Absolutely. So would I. It'd be
Yeah,
one of those things, don't throw it out after
right.
5 years. And I understand there are a lot of things, a lot of times the government will mandate that you have to put an expiration date on. But if you even look at pharmaceuticals,
Yes.
right? The government did studies on those pharmaceuticals and found that they lasted 5, 8 years after that expiration date. So if I had to look and go, okay, my pack is expired. Doggone it, I paid $50 for that thing. I'm gonna have it. If I have new, great, I'll use the new first. But if I don't have anything else, I'm
Right.
gonna give it a whirl because what do I have to lose? I'm in a dire try situation.
Yes. It also does that T2 toxin that is really, really lethal. The Soviets developed it when they were in Afghanistan. They used it on the Afghanis.
Ugh.
Uh, it's really, really lethal. It's more lethal than nerve agent. And
So now, what would your initial symptoms be? How do you know when you need to pull that sponge out and use it?
well, in a nerve agent, there's different symptoms for different, you know, chemicals. In a nerve agent, your eyes will become dilated. You'll drool. You'll sweat, kind of like me on a Saturday night.
Okay.
Now the T2 toxin, it starts hemorrhaging
Okay.
you will start hemorrhaging in the small blood vessels and stuff like that.
Well,
Um,
let me ask you this question though, because
yeah.
Ebola, right? When you look at
Yes.
Ebola, now people are going to be hemorrhaging. Also, you're
Yeah.
going to have blood coming out the eyes, the ears, possibly
Yeah.
out your nose. You're going to possibly be vomiting, diarrhea, everything. Okay.
Yeah.
But Ebola doesn't just happen instantly.
No.
So will that chemical happen like instantly? Those symptoms are going to
Yes.
come on fast.
Yes. Well, you'll start in a nerve agent. You'll start seeing symptoms in 9 seconds.
Okay. So pull that pack out fast.
Yes.
Treat
And
yourself first and then help the person next to you as long as
ab-
they have a sponge.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Kind of
And,
like
and
on the airplane.
yes, and anything. Now that's if you get, your skin. If you have an unknown substance on your skin, you want to decontaminate that. If you have a mask, you want to put a mask on. And
Okay.
any mask is better than no mask. If you don't have a chemical protecting mask, use a painter's mask. Use the Afghan freedom fighters would carry a rag in their cargo pocket, and they'd pull it out and urinate on it and put it over their face. And the uric acid was enough to filter out whatever the Soviets were using, enough
Wow.
to get them
Okay.
out of the area. So use any kind of protection you have. Don't think that, oh, I don't got it, I'm going to die. That's why you got to, the first thing you got to do is think. You
Right.
got, yes.
You
You
know
know,
what I always tell people too? I'm like, if you're in a dire try situation,
yes,
dying should not be your first option, right?
exactly. Yeah,
And I try to teach people and go, you can step back and think. Sometimes you only get a split second,
yeah,
but there are a lot of times where it's more than a split second. You actually have time to analyze. And the big thing is making those game plans now and feeding it to your brain so that when a situation occurs, you
yes,
automatically, your brain has a response and you don't get frozen in fear,
yeah.
right? Because a lot of people do. They panic and they're frozen in fear and they don't know what to do.
Well,
And
yeah,
yet you look at these things now, and that's why I'm so excited to have you on, and I'm excited to have you come and we can talk about each one of these individually. I know we do have some people on who are close to Norfolk,
yeah,
Naval Base. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, I always say in my presentation, I'll ask the people. I say, how many people here have large trash bags and duct tape? And they raise their hand, and I say, well, you already have a chemical protective suit and don't know it.
right. I love that. I've heard you say that, and I
Yeah,
do love that because it is true.
yeah,
We don't think about the things we have around us that can be used to help to help save a life, to help protect us, to make our lives easier. We just have to think differently than what this society is breeding people to think. And that basically is we're helpless and we need other people to tell us what to do.
Yeah. And you brought up Ebola, so I'm going to talk about this. You know, those, the doctors, when they came out of the hot zone, you know, they said it was the hot zone.
Right.
It was hot because it was Africa, but
right.
they had those shields on that protected their whole face. You can get that at Home Depot. It's not a special chemical shield. It's a welder's mask, keeps debris off. It was to keep droplets off of your face. And then the N95 mask filters out 95% of all particulate matter. So that's why it's N95. And you can get N100s, but you need to get some of this supply now, because when the thing happens, you will not find this stuff.
It's too late. Do you know what? And if you think back to the 1600s, where you see the pictures of the men wearing those big beak cones, stuffed with herbs. Okay, that's what they were doing to try to help protect themselves, that they were breathing in good. So, you know, looking back to history and some of the things that were used way back when, we got lazy, right? We got comfortable and we stopped learning the knowledge of days of old. And you know, looking at this nuclear, biological, chemical, there are a lot of things that people can do, and it doesn't have to be a fear. You know, it's just that we need to do the work. So we are at 8:20, and what we're going to do is I actually have something that we're going to try out. We're looking at, like I had talked to you about, and nobody else knows about this yet who's on here listening, but we're talking about going ahead and doing longer programs that people can come on, and kind of like our Time with Experts. That's a 2.5 day event, but you know, they would be able to join us online. But we have a sponsor, and so we are going to play our very first sponsor position. And here's what I have said. I will only have a sponsor who truly has something of value, that if I won't buy it, I won't use it, I'm not going to take them. You know, because we're all about trying to help people get prepared and to help save lives. So we're going to go ahead and play this, and then we're going to come back and everybody can unmute and we can allow them to ask the questions that they have. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yep, it's coming.
Oh, look at that.
If you're off the grid by choice or by disaster, you need a green innovative G-Mag portable power cell. This amazing saltwater or biofuel activated device makes power anytime, anywhere, in any weather, day or night. Simply add a little bit of salt and water or urine to the unit, and it instantly makes electricity. G-Mag will recharge 6 AA batteries in about 4 hours repeatedly. It has an indefinite shelf life and will recharge an unlimited number of batteries. Get yours today at greeninnovative.com.
You know, Alan.
Oh yeah. Hey, let me put something else in there. That thing is EMP hardened. So if you want,
isn't that awesome? Yeah.
Yes. If you want to have electricity after the EMP, you need one of those.
Yeah, it's such I tell you what, I was so excited, and I really did give Alan a hard time when we first met him, because I honestly didn't believe it could work the way he said it was. And so, you know, I would see him out on the circuit and I would just needle that guy. And now it's one that I truly believe that's something that needs to be in every single household. It certainly will be such a tremendous benefit if people are preparing. I look at something like this and go, okay, yep, you know what? You need to invest. Lord willing, we'll be able to get it on, but if not, we know they can at least get it on Amazon. I also want to go ahead, while we have people on, I want to show people you are the host of your own radio podcasts, right? Where it's live on Saturday nights and then goes into podcast form. So here is that address for everybody. Now this is his website. Okay, let's do this. This is your website. Oh, and there we go. Okay, so this is the radio. It's prepperbroadcasting.com. But here's what we wanted to show people, because we know I was on the other day. My speaking is off sync here, but that's okay. Don't watch my mouth. If you scroll down, you'll see chat now. And you can go ahead and make up any nickname and join the chat, and you'll be able to hear the program live and also ask questions while Dave is talking or interviewing, kind of like we do here. But when we're doing it, we see all those questions pop up right away. Then David's website that I highly recommend is wmdprotection.com. And if you click on store, is it going to bring it up? Yeah, it's thinking. Anyways, here's where David has his DVDs. I highly recommend those DVDs for people who are wanting to learn more on the nuclear, biological, and chemical. Okay, so here they are right here. They finally came up. All right, and so you can just go there. Definitely worth the purchase if you're trying to educate yourself. Okay, so, and if I can throw this in, I'm going to be on your radio program again on March 10th, right? Is that 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday, correct?
Yes, Prepper Broadcasting Network.
Yes.
It's an internet radio show, and the name of my show is Prepping Up with the Joneses.
Right. And so you know what, David covers a lot of different topics, so definitely worth watching. Okay. Anyways, all right. So I don't have specific dates of when David will be back, but he will be back. Does anybody have any questions for him that haven't been asked in the chat? You can unmute yourself. If you don't want to be seen, that's okay. Bob, you have a question?
I do. David, it was not too terribly long ago, there was a lot of news about training camps for radical religious groups and just radical groups, period, all over the nation. We actually had one down in southern Georgia near us. I'm wondering if you've looked into those at all, and because of the fact that Agent Orange and other things like that are so easy to produce, is there any study that you've seen that looks into whether those particular areas are doing any kind of stockpiling that we would have to worry about?
That's a great question. Now, I haven't looked into the groups in a long, long time. But when I was in security and police work, we did have a list of groups and groups that operated in our area, and we monitored. Now, after 9/11 and also after Oklahoma City bombing, they keep track of people that buy large quantities of chemicals, and it's really difficult, not impossible, but difficult to be able to stockpile large quantities. Now, whether or not they have the technical ability to, deliver a good attack, that's another thing. It's something that it should be a concern. Where it falls on different levels of concern, that's everybody's guess. If you're in a hurricane alley and you're not prepping for a hurricane first, there's a problem there. And that is everybody's prepper dollars, what you want to spend your money on and prep for.
Okay.
Chemicals, you go ahead.
Bob, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it was a great answer.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Does anybody else have a question? I know that people have been asking questions all along, but if
I've tried to see if there's anything that I can talk about in the chat room. Yeah, cinnamon oil, that's probably all in your bailiwick there. And
right.
Was it elderberries? Yeah, I know. I'm getting my elderberries now from my wife, but she fills me up.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can do. Natural alternatives. People really need to look at the different things, so that they can prepare. I think each different, like you and I were talking, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a biological, chemical, whatever, you just have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you really need to be prepared and have a game plan.
Yep. There's someone put something in the chat room. Go to nuclearsurety.com and run the nuke scenario for those who are worried about nuclear attacks. Okay.
Have you ever been to that site?
No, I haven't, but I'm going to go there as soon as we sign off.
Okay, so after you go to that site, next time when you come on, we will have to ask you what you think about that site.
Yeah. Hey, let me bring this up since they brought up nuclear. You always hear that the Soviet Union will launch 1,700 bombs and all this kind of stuff. Well, they're not going to save any. They're not going to save any for England or France or anybody else that might come to our aid. It's not going to be the all-out exchange that the doomsday people say it's going to be. It's going to be bad. It's going to be terrible. And if you're right at ground zero, it's going to be over for you. But it's not going to be the end of the world apocalypse. You're going to be able to survive if you prepare and don't panic.
You know what, David? Thank you. I like that. Somebody else just put in there, how aware do you think Trump is about this?
About nuclear? I think he's very aware. He's actually put to DOD that he wants to start up our nuclear program. That's another thing. Our newest nuclear weapon was built in the 90s. And we have some nuclear weapons that go all the way back to the 50s. So the countries that are developing nuclear weapons today are using today's technology to do it. And if you wanted to start a nuclear program from scratch, it takes about 20 years to get it going. Mm. Now, fortunately, we don't have to go through the same learning curve that a country would have to do from scratch, but it will take a while to get our nuclear program back up and make it viable again.
Okay, James, do you want to ask your question? Can you see James' question?
It says, is there an age that after a nuclear attack takes K1, will it not be worth the time? I'm not sure what he's talking about.
You see, by chance, maybe he's talking about potassium?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, the potassium iodide is only good for radioactive isotopes that are used primarily in nuclear power plants. So fallout, it's not going to work for fallout. Okay, fallout is dirt that's radioactively charged. It has a charge to it, but it's just plain dirt. It's not a radioactive isotope. So the potassium iodide binds itself to the nuclear isotope. If you would ingest it in, this is for like a Chernobyl or a Fukushima, a meltdown that spews this radioactive isotope over an area. And those people that are downwind from that need this. If you are living anywhere close, and I'm talking about 20 miles of a nuclear power plant, and you know this is a prep you should absolutely have. It's inexpensive, about $8 you can get a bottle of pills, and you should have some for everybody in your family. And
well, David, okay, so this question then.
Sure.
You say for like a Chernobyl.
Yes.
what if it is not? I mean, I think people have the belief that if there's any nuclear attack, they need to be taking that. That's what people are basically promoting. Oh, you need those potassium iodide tablets, right?
Right.
But that's not the case, you're saying.
No, it doesn't work for fallout. Now, fallout's bad if you eat it or inhale it, okay? But it's just plain dirt that has a radioactive charge to it. There will be some nuclear isotope in the area of ground zero and a little ways downwind, but it's not going to be, first of all, it may not be the same material that fuel is used. They're very close, but they're not the same.
Okay. Thank you, because I think that hopefully that clears that up for some people, because I think, in the whole conspiracy theory, I think there are a lot of people who just go, oh, you have to have that. If anything were to occur, you have to take that. And, you see it being sold all the time. Especially at conventions and stuff. And yet I think a lot of the people who are selling it don't really have an understanding for what it should be used for. So thank you for clearing that up. I'm sorry there's a lag when I talk. I see that lag going on, so I'm sorry. I'm sure that's going to be really annoying for people watching.
No, I just thought you were having a stroke.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much there, David. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? If not, I know we've gone 5 minutes over, so you know what, David, thank you. Again, I'm going to be letting people know we have to look at both of our calendars and set up for the different times that you can be back on. Again, the good thing, I'm very excited. I will be on your radio program on the 10th of March. So I highly encourage people to start listening to David's radio program. If you can't listen that night, you will be able to hear it in a podcast form. But just like with this event, if you're not on live, there are things that you miss when you go over and you watch it in the recording aspect. So I highly encourage people to really kind of put that on their list of things to do if you're trying to learn more and educate yourself. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I am going to go ahead and unmute. I mean, not unmute, but take us off the recording. Okay, so we're no longer recording here. And so I just, again, David, thank you so much.
Oh, sure.
It's been an absolute delight having you on. I think everybody will walk away with more knowledge now on both of those, or all three of those areas than what they had before. Again, reach out to David. David, he has his email address on his website. If you have questions, I know that David will answer them. I am going to be putting links to some of your articles because they're really good in our newsletter, David. Thank you for letting me share that with all of our people and stuff. So just, I appreciate everybody who is signed in. I don't know if you're looking at some of the posts that are going up there now, David. So, they're saying, please come back soon, David. That's awesome.
I will. Thank you.
Back.
Okay, I will. All right. Thank you.
Well, so God bless you. Stay safe in your neck of the woods. And we'll be talking again soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.